Dun, 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 dun. Ready to go. There we go. We're in. Hello, everybody. 1 2 1 2. Just check my microphone's on this week. Fucked this one up last week. So it out. There we go. Yep. Ishmish Miha. That'll be funny later. You don't know what that is. It's funny as fuck. Not me. It's a joke. You'll get it later. I'm going to explain later. So, hello everybody, and welcome to the live stream. Hope you're well. Let's get this bad boy up here. Yeah. So, everyone's fine. Everyone's good. Come and join me on the live stream. If you're listening to this podcast, fair play to you. Like, share, subscribe. You can join me live on a Wednesday night. I do this live on YouTube, and just another way of doing it. And then I take the audio from this, and that's what you hear as your podcast. You see, so that's how it works. So, what am I going to talk about? Well, tonight, anybody that follows me on Twitter, I was going to talk exclusively about unionism and the joint statement that Unionists made during the week on Monday, and I was happy enough about that. And I would have done maybe another story or picked up on another topic. But then, the gift that will not stop giving happened, and it happened yesterday to me. I became aware of it yesterday. And it's called the Celtics, and it's this mad movie TV project that at first glance appears to be just fucking stupid, but turns out it's a lot more sinister than that. But I'll get to it. I'll explain when I get to it. But we're going to talk about the Unionist thing first. So, first of all, as I always do, my updates. So, the updates are as such. We don't really have much to tell you. You know that Andy got nominated for the Northern Ireland Music Prize, got shortlisted. Thank you all who voted for me. I appreciate it. I really sincerely appreciate it. It means the world to me. I've since found out that the ceremony, is that the word I'm wanting? Ceremony sounds a bit grand for what anything I would be involved in. Whatever it is going to be. They're going to announce it all on the 17th. Whoop! Let me just get that out of the way. Sorry, I was doing a bit of recording in here during the day, during the week. So with microphones all sort of hanging about the place. Yeah, so the ceremony is the 17th of November. Don't know where. Don't know if there's going to be a ceremony. We're still living in the world of lockdown, as you know. And yeah. So there's that. And then they're going to announce, I thought they were going to announce it today, but maybe it's tomorrow, the rest of the nominees, the rest of the shortlist. So I'll look forward to seeing that, actually. I'll be very, very cool. And as I said, as you know, I'm just going to go and get fucked up drunk, and it's going to be class. It's going to be just a night out. It's going to be brilliant. You get a chance to bask in your own glory. Let people blow smoke up your hole. Let's face it. There's we've all got a touch of the egomaniac. None more so than us musicians. So I like to go out and tell people how awesome we are, and pretend that we're very humble. That's one of our favourite things to do. When we say we don't like getting recognised, we're lying. We're liars. We love it. I'm only joking. We don't like... Well, I don't anyway. We spoke about this before. We're not going to get into that. I got distracted there. So, yeah, so the Northern Ireland Music Prize, so there's that. And then I have a picture up on the screen here. I'll just read you the dates. I'm playing a lovely gig with my dear friend Stevie Scullion that you know him from Melodeon, and he did last year. It was before lockdown anyway. A month of Sundays in the American Bar, and it was great. Pardon me. And what it was, he 5 Sundays in the month, and he played a gig and had a guest artist in every week. And I did it the first time. It was over a year ago now, and it was fantastic. Oh, we fucking loved it. It's one of my favourite gigs of all time, because it was so different from what I normally do. It's not the band thing where you jump into a van and you fucking go driving and do all these things and don't get home to 4 o'clock in the morning, or if you get home at all. I put an acoustic guitar into a gig bag, jumped on a train with my wife and my daughter Lily, and we went up and we played the gig. And you get £100 and you go and buy a load of beer with it and buy some food and go down to Madden's and have a lot of pints and go home a wee bit drunk. And it was such a great experience. And my daughter Lily sang with me on stage, and it was beautiful, and it stayed with me, and it sort of inspired. I was going, I want to do this. I want to do more of this, like this. And then the pandemic happened, and that put an end to that until now. So Stevie has booked a Sunday series in the American Bar in every Sunday in October, starting this Sunday coming. And his first guest is Mandy Bingham, who's amazing. Second, week 1. Week 2 is myself. Week 3 is Ferna Week. Week 4 is Christopher Call, whose EP I have, and I would like to go to that gig. And if I don't get to go to it, you can live stream these as well. And week 5 is Edel McMahon. So if you go to Stevie's Twitter or Instagram or Facebook, you'll get all the information you need. The gigs are all sold out, but he is live streaming them, so you can do that. Pardon me. So you can do that. You can live stream them. They're afternoon gigs, like 2 o'clock on a Sunday afternoon. Very, very cool, very groovy. And yeah, so there's that. So I'm looking for. I really can't wait to do that. I'm writing a few new songs for that. It's going to be fun. What else? Updates. What are we looking at? Updates here. So, oh yes, I'm not going to talk about this tonight because I'm still looking into it. But I want to mention it. We're just going to skim over it real quick. Berlin, the people voted to take back control of their housing, because as we know, there's a housing crisis pretty much all over the Western world. And it's basically, to simplify what's going on, is hedge funds, vulture funds, are stock market people, and they're buying up housing stock all over the world and taking control of it. Often they leave places empty in order to just whatever. And so the same thing is happening here in Ireland. They're doing it. It's happening everywhere. But the Berlin people, they're very left, sort of very lefty, left wing, and they voted to take control of 240,000 houses, flats, apartments, accommodations, and they're just taking them back off them. Just, no, fuck off, you can't have these. And it is brilliant. And my mate Pete, I told you about Pete before, he does that Berlin battle damage thing. He lives over there part-time. Well, he has a flat there. He's planning to retire there. So I was talking to him about it the other day, and it's very interesting. And when you consider, that's what needs to happen in Ireland, north and south, and there's a housing crisis in the north as well, but it's not widely reported. But I found a girl today who's putting together an article about it, and she's getting in, and so I'm kind of keeping one eye on that. So once I get a better handle on the situation, I'll share that with you. So, but I think that's fantastic, and it's a good sign. But it's, it's a sign of things to come, but it's really what we need to be doing. And, yeah, so there's that. But we'll talk about that some other time. I think it's burning 240,000 houses. That's it. Awfully fuck yous. Fucking hedge fund vulture bastards. Away and fling shite at the moon. They said as one. And fuck off. Offity fuck. And off they fucked. Brilliant. Let me just make that a bit bigger. That's what she said. So, we're going to talk tonight about, as I said, the Unionists unite. So, we'll get into that now. Let's do that now. Turn this music down. I'll show you. And I'm going to read you out because, as you know, it is my want to ramble. And quite often I ramble and then I don't hit my points, my target points. So what I've decided to do this past few podcasts is write my thoughts down. A little piece here, and I'm going to read it out to you. And it just kind of hits a few things, just in case I miss them over the course of it, because I'm going to read you an article by Brian Feeney and another something that was in the newsletter. I'll just skim over it. So basically, to explain to you what happened, this is it. This week, the four main Unionist parties, led by JD of the DUP, released a joint statement demanding the end of the Northern Ireland Protocol. The same week that Ulster men and women have seen on the evening news English men and women literally punching each other on petrol station forecourts in frustration after being forced to queue for a rationed amount of fuel brought about due to the lorry driver shortage in Britain. There is no fuel shortage. They can't get the fuel to the stations. Okay? The cause of the shortage is, of course, Brexit. John Bull told Johnny Foreigner to fuck off from whence he came, to sully fair blighty no more with his brown tendencies. So as we in the Occupado Shea witnessed our Norman conquerors wrestle each other in a BP petrol station live on Facebook, or as we witnessed our Norman conquerors wrestle each other, I'll do that again. So as we in the Occupado 6 witnessed our Norman conquerors wrestle each other in a BP petrol station live on Facebook, our Ulster Unionist brothers and sisters decided that would be the right moment to bow to the demands of Jim Allister and Shamie Bryson, and insist that Boris Johnson's government press the British knife harder to the European throat and end the Northern Ireland Protocol. But what does that mean? It means that goods will be able to freely move into the European market, namely the Republic of Ireland, and then onwards to the rest of the EU. In response, the EU would be forced to place tariffs on pretty much all goods coming from the UK into the EU. In the process, it would sink UK manufacturing, food exports, fishing, although that's fucked anyway, and all manner of industries in the process, in order to appease a minority of a minority in the northwest corner of Ireland. It would also place the land border back. Get that in a sec. That same minority who have never honestly engaged with the EU or Dublin to avoid the potential for complete disaster. That same minority who rejected the chance to secure Northern Ireland within the Union by making it, for its first time in history, a place of genuine opportunity, as it would have access to the UK market and the EU. That same minority who led the charge during the Brexit campaign in the TV, radio and newspapers gleefully accused us all with a well-meaning warning about the dangers that were looming of being Ramoners and at best and traitors at worst. That same minority that blamed everybody but itself for its own downfall. Dublin, the EU, the pan-nationalism, whatever that is. That same minority that allowed itself to have its pants pulled down by the Tories again and again, refusing to learn the lessons of history and now expect to still lead with credulity. And this for me is the big one. That same minority who wanted a militarised border on the island of Ireland and is still prepared to see us in the north, us who have least of all across these islands, to have even less than that. Worst outcomes across the board. They want us to have less again. Longest NHS waiting lists by far would be even longer. Least opportunity to succeed in business. They would have us all even have less again. The Northern Ireland Protocol is an opportunity for this small troubled place to do well in future, to bypass the worst excesses of Brexit. It is not perfect, no one claims it is. Can it be amended and changed to be better? Of course it can. Will the EU do that? Yes, but only with willing partners that will engage. That is not the current pan-unionist front. As our English neighbours fall victim to elite mismanagement, and that's what this is, our elites have decided that this is the opportune moment to demand our freedom from the Northern Ireland Protocol. This is the reality. From England, we have different land law, abortion law, employment law, licensing law. We have our own holidays, cultural celebrations, but god damn it, if you cannot get a ginster's pasty or an English sausage, it's game over. The end. And that's where we are. So, that's one of the things that we mustn't ever forget whenever we have these conversations. And it's not mentioned, for me it's not mentioned often, but anywhere near often enough. Unionism wants a border on the island. They want a militarised border, because the border has to go somewhere. There is going to be a border to check goods. Let's face it, at the end of the day, the European Union, it's a capitalist enterprise. It's capitalism in action. Same as the UK. They don't give we will have our freedom of movement sacrificed in order to, to provide greater access for goods. The people will suffer before the goods will. I think the EU have some fair intentions. I don't think, they're just as bad as that, but if it come down to it, if it was 50-50, we would lose out, and that's what unionism wants, right? So on Monday, just past, as I've said in my little piece there, Jeffrey Donaldson, Doug Beattie of the UUP, Jim Allister of the TUV, and Councillor Billy Hutchinson of the PUP. Billy Hutchinson and Jim Allister are pretty, they're pretty fringe figures, and Jim Allister is a fucking head case. But they released their statement demanding we, the undersigned unionist political leaders, affirm our opposition to the Northern Ireland Protocol, its mechanisms and structures, and reaffirm our unalterable position that the protocol must be rejected and replaced by arrangements which fully respect Northern Ireland's position as a constituent and integral part of the United Kingdom. Well, it's never going to happen. It won't happen. It can't happen. And these people were told, they were warned, but they still campaigned for Brexit, putting sovereignty above all else. This mythological creature called sovereignty. Jeffrey Donaldson has threatened to bring down Stormont if it doesn't go by Christmas. So that's nice. We've got that to look forward to. That's going to be a lot of fun. He's also threatened to bring it down if Sinn Féin end up the biggest party, which they will be by far. So, this is all unionism's own doing, and it's why I can't. There's no, in that statement. I know there's a bit more to the statement than that, and there, if you follow a lot of these Twitter accounts as I do, talk about the loss of business and all this sort of stuff, and we know that these aren't true. There are obviously some businesses. There are some like if you like me personally. Well, we'll go. This is anecdotal. I'll grant you, but my experience of getting stuff shipped from the UK, from Britain to here, would be mostly on things like eBay. And in the past, I have had many purchases where you can't make the purchase because they don't ship to Northern Ireland. I don't know why, but they don't. So there's more of that sort of stuff. But we're generally, there's nothing, maybe a few wee things. Supply lines are being reorganised, reimagined, redrawn, and things are carrying on pretty much as normal. And we're supposed to give that up. And this is the week that Unionism has decided to release their joint statement. And there's no excuse here, by the way. The stuff with the English petrol stations, it was happening at the end of last week. It was happening most of last week, I think. And they still decided to go ahead with this. So while the optics show you people fighting with each other in queues outside of petrol stations where people are queuing for an hour, hospitals staff can't get to work because they don't have the fuel. Some people, if they drive to work, some people might drive an hour, 2 hours to work, especially in England. They don't have the diesel to do it. So while all that was going on, this is whenever Unionism gets itself together to release a joint statement to say that they want out of the protocol, which everybody knows is the thing that's protecting us from those same queues in England, from the same empty shelves. That now, it's not end of days stuff. They'll be fine. Of course they'll be fine. But it's not a good look, is it? But we're supposed. So this is Unionism again. So then and with all credulity, they claim to be the leaders. They're the leaders. They're the people that are elected, and they are, because they're the ones that are elected. So that bit is definitely true. And this is the moment that they choose. Did anybody in the meeting say, guys, maybe we'll hold off a week or two to see how this petrol thing works out? Because we're literally dropping this in the middle of this fuel crisis. That's being called the fuel crisis. It's running on all the main news channels. It's in all the newspapers. If Labour weren't so fucking shit, it should cost Boris Johnson his government. But it won't. So, let them eat. Peter Graham, my buddy Pete Graham, was telling you about him. Let them eat flags. There we go. Exactly. There will be. There we go. So, and that for me, it's indicative of political unionism's political acumen. They keep getting their trousers pulled down by the Tories, and then this is a complete cell phone. Again, this is something that I haven't heard anybody else make this point. Why you literally, while there's a fuel crisis going on in England, this is when you've decided to release a statement. It is staggering. It is fucking staggering. It is stupid, and they should be held to account for this. Now, this is another. While this is class, while the English are running out of diesel and petrol for their cars and can't get food in their supermarkets, here's an article from the BBC. This is from yesterday or the day before. Now, if you read things like If you read certain commentators, they'll have you believe that there is some sort of a crisis going on here within manufacturing, within industry. There isn't. It may be things, as I said, things do maybe need to be realigned or whatever. Or there may be extra checks have to go, and they will have to go. And if they are significant, again, you work within the Northern Ireland Protocol, and you eventually, hopefully, we'll be able to get that you'll not have to fill out stupid amount of forms to get something sent from England for your for your factory or for whatever it is. But we'll have to work within that. But you can't complain about it if you campaign for it. If you wanted Brexit, if you're on the side of Brexit, and there are a few loyalist commentators who say, well, I didn't vote for Brexit. Fair play to them. Everybody else fucking did. So, I found this article. So, whilst there's food shortages in or fuel shortages, there's a fuel crisis in England, and whilst all our main unionist parties are calling for the very mechanisms that protect us from those same shortages, while they're calling for those to be removed, for us to have experienced the same shortages as our English brothers and sisters, the BBC come up with this. And it's really funny. There's a lot more to being a clown than just putting on a big nose and a big pair of baggy pants. That's according to David Duffy, the owner of Duffy's Circus, who is appealing for people from Northern Ireland to become clowns. The COVID-19 pandemic has caused a shortage of clowns. Hardly the end of the fucking world. If you want a circus, it is. That's our shortages. That's the shortages we're suffering, right? So, I'm going to finish this bit about unionism with the article from the mighty Brian Feeney, and this was published today. So this is right up to date. So, Brian Feeney's article, "The New Terrible Twins of Unionism," and this is another coming at it from another angle about what you've seen in that same photograph of the Unionists. This photograph here, what that represents. This is what Brian's going to talk about now, and it's a very important point. On Monday, the Irish Times published a joint article by Jeffrey Donaldson and Jim Allister, thereby announcing themselves as the conjoined twins of unionism. It was an extraordinary farrago of false assertions, half-truths and downright misleading claims about the Irish Protocol, about which they have worked themselves into a lather. What is evident about their decision to pen a joint piece is that unionism is starkly divided, with Donaldson weakly and foolishly throwing in his lot with Allister, whose playbook he has decided to follow blindly. And that's the point. That's amazing. There are some easily predictable consequences. First, when you ride a tiger, it will turn on you and devour you. Giving Allister a leg up by adopting his ideas and twinning with him means Donaldson has forfeited any DUP policy or strategy. Secondly, the UUP can now stand out clear and independent. The party no longer has to distance itself from the extreme anti-Good Friday Agreement position Allister promotes. Donaldson has accomplished that for the UUP. It seems beyond Donaldson's grasp that you can't co-write an article with a man who wants to destroy the Good Friday Agreement, simultaneously complaining that the Good Friday Agreement has been damaged. So, just to make it clear, this isn't about the statement, it's about Jim Allister and Jeffrey Donaldson releasing a statement together, a separate statement, article in the Irish Times. The arguments they advance in the article range from spurious to the nonsensical. For example, the false claim that the protocol has introduced seismic changes in the constitutional position of the North is demonstrably wrong. They claim the damages part of the act of union was impliedly repealed, neglecting to point out that the High Court added that it is well within the normal practice of the British doctrine of parliamentary sovereignty, and that it has happened several times in the past, not least by the Government of Ireland Act in 1920 and the subsequent establishment of the Free State in 22. What is particularly annoying is the repeated whinge that the protocol was imposed without the people of Northern Ireland having any say. For some reason that didn't bother either Donaldson or Allister, who were delighted to impose Brexit on people here despite the majority voting against it. In fact, Donaldson went on to try to impose his party's hardline version of Brexit because they thought it would result in a hardening of the British border in Ireland. And that's my point. They wanted a hard border. And I'm fucking delighted that they don't get it. And this is and just to veer off a little bit, what they want is dangerous. What they we all know, everyone that lives here knows the reality of the situation. It is a dangerous thing to do. Not only will it draw out the men of violence, it will also, those of us that aren't men of violence, men and women of violence, will have our daily lives restricted again. I can drive to Dublin. I've actually driven to Dublin in about 60 minutes. Back from the airport, 2 a.m, and all the rest of it. Just bombing down the motorway, 100 and whatever mile an hour. It's just down the road. It used to take 3 or 4 hours to get to Dublin. It used to take like 8 hours to get to Cork. You can do it in 4 hours now. That border goes back in. That's all over. Now, if you don't care, if you don't travel down there, then, why would you care? Well, I do, and I do care. So, indeed, evidence of how determined were the DUP to achieve that objective is provided in the memoirs of Gavin Barwell. Theresa May's Chief of Staff, Barwell recalls that at a crucial time in November 2018, after May had concluded her backstop deal with the EU and was touring the UK to drum up support, the DUP were so embarrassed by the strong support for the deal from businesses in the north that they came to see May and asked her to stop the Northern Ireland Secretary, Karen Bradley at the time, and her team from promoting it. Incredibly, her own government's policy, which would have avoided an Irish sea border, that's how ridiculous Donaldson and his crew are now. They're still at it. The terrible twins in their Irish Times article demand in their traditional Unionist voice the protocol must go, just like 50 years ago. O'Neill must go. Their alternative, guess what? Mutual enforcement of each side's regulations between the North and the Republic. In other words, a hardening of the British border on the island. If they don't get that, which they won't, well then it's the traditional Unionist response. Walkouts, boycotts, attempted veto, trying to block implementation of any provisions flowing from the protocol in the Assembly. Remember whenever Edmund Poots tried to stop the building of the border checkposts in Larne and all that? Highly dubious. The parting shot in the article is to appeal to the British government to invoke Article 16 and introduce measures to keep the North a full part of the UK, denying the truth that unfortunately it remains so. That's another misleading notion. Invoking Article 16 doesn't eliminate the protocol. In fact, it kicks off an elaborate process to establish how better to operate the protocol. Refusal means EU sanctions, Brexit, turkeys, and Christmas. Well said, Brian Feeney. I'd blown smoke up my own hole. I had a few of those points myself in my wee bit at the start, and it's all true. And this is the continued nonsense of Unionist leadership at the minute. Everything about it is wrong and demonstrably wrong. They campaigned for this in the first place. They were told, and then those of us that told them, not that they would listen to me, but those that told them were mocked. And then they're claiming Article 16 will do this. Article 16 won't, without getting into the weeds on it, but it won't do what they say it's going to do. The British government aren't going to fucking withdraw the Northern Ireland Protocol because of unionism. The British government, the priority is Britain, not here, not the north of Ireland. An occupado share, as I called it in my piece. So, that's where we are, but these people still claim to be the leaders, but they've no, but their credibility is gone. If they were talking to us about this with a hint of reality, it's a completely different. It's a different discussion. But it's insanity. It's just wrong. They're just wrong. Everything they're saying is wrong. And the things that they're complaining about, that we've a loss of this, we've a loss of that. Okay, I'm sorry. Well, how do we make you not feel that without putting barbed wire on a fucking border that fucking very few people want? They're going to have to help us figure this out. We can't, in a realistic way. But they won't. So, there we go. So on to the next bit. Now, I've been looking forward to this. I'll be honest with you. Only that Unionist story, I wouldn't have done it at all. Only it's pretty fucking big. But this is hilarious. I don't know if you're on Twitter. I am. Give me a wee follow. You can see me there. A Bonneville's. You can see all my links are on screen and all the rest of it. Right? So here we go. This is about this. So I follow another social media thing called Reddit, right? And I'm gonna pull that music down. And this is called the Celtics. That word doesn't exist. There's no. That's not a word. The Celtics. So I'll throw this up here on the screen. The window capture. I don't know if you can see it. I'll make it a bit bigger. No. Oh, there we go. So, there's what I seen on Reddit. Has the Celtic Films guy blocked you on Twitter yet? So I'll read it out to you. It's a post on Reddit. It's like a message board thing. Some American guy posting as Celtic Films is making a show about the Celtics of Britain and Ireland. The Celtics being in inverted commas. In which various deities from the pagan pantheon try to rally the tribes against, checks notes, race traitors and globalist Roman censorship. Yes, this is a real thing. This is a thing that happened. So that sparked my interest, because obviously I'm an anti-colonialist. I'm a socialist, as you know. And I love my Irish culture, and I'm been sharing a lot of that with you guys. So this sparked my interest. Sorry, give me a sec. So, one scene has Roman soldiers breaking up a free speech rally at the Hill of Tara. This is real. This is fucking real, people. Right? So stay with me. We're going deep into this, right? So bear with me. If you've ever heard of or interacted with them in any way, this proud, brave Celtic activist has preemptively blocked quite a lot of Irish and Scottish Twitter, who might point out to the mildly interested Americans that the history he's appropriating isn't actually a great fit for this whole white nationalist culture war narrative. People of Norse descent have seen this kind of fetishization for their heritage for ages, and it's a pity to see the Celts getting dragged into this too. Now, that's the point, right? So I read that, and I went, ooh, what has been going on? So, it turns out that what it is, these right-wing culture warriors, that's what they are, have now glommed on to Irish culture and are trying to use it to promote their own agendas, right? And it's out there. It's out there to see. They're not even trying to fucking hide it. So let me see here. Where is the thing? So I'm going to show you. Right, so you know what it is that I'm talking about. I'm going to play you a video. And I'll describe what happens so you know what it is. Where the fuck have I put it? Don't tell me I've lost it again. No, there it is. So, I'll describe what it is you're about to see. Because it is fucking, quite frankly, beyond belief. Or for those of you listening, what you're about to hear, it works both away. So, in it, the director describes himself and his project. Quite simply. So, let's just do this. You're not going to fucking believe this. This is fucking stunning. Watch this.
Hi, Ismish Mihal. Ismish Mihal. I'm Michael Kingsbury.
Ismish Mihal. I don't want to take the piss out of anybody attempting to fucking speak a language, because I'm only a student myself. But I'm okay with it in this case. When Nazis are fucking it up, I'm happy with. I'm okay to take the piss. It's not Ismish Mihal. It's Ismisha. Ishmisha. Not Ismish. It gets worse. Stay with it. Ismish Mihal. My name is Michael. I am Michael.
I am the writer-director of the independent series Celtics. The reason I'm making this series about the Celtics, this independent series...
There is no the Celtics. It doesn't exist.
...is that my ancestors come from County Sligo. County Sligo.
Sligo?
County Sligo.
Sligo?
And we have already filmed some amazing scenes with the most talented actors. You'll be blown away by their performances here.
I'd like for him to come up and see me in County Armagh. County Armagh. Lurgan, County Armagh. From County Sligo.
Censorship of the totalitarian Roman Empire is already coming upon us.
Muzzled. Voiceless.
You'll be blown away.
These gifts are not ours. We do not make our gifts.
Check script.
Our gifts travel through us.
Censor and control our speech from one authoritarian point.
Check
No
script.
more will we be a free people.
They are called Romano Britons!
You'll be blown away.
I know that many times in the past,
This
I
dude on screen. Oh, sorry, I'm going to let it play. I'll let it play for finish.
have fought the other Celtic tribes.
Blown away. So no matter what funding we get, we can make this first episode happen. This will be a legendary episode that we will be filming. Any level of backing that you choose, the rewards are outstanding. We have a Celtic Druid Wizard's hat. We have a Druid walking staff.
Druid walking staff.
We have a Druid
This is the
hood.
merch. The merch.
And many other
$200.
DVD, Blu-ray, box feature set. So join us if you can. Come aboard and let's...
So,
Hi, this is
right,
Mish Me.
so what you just saw there, and for those of you listening, I'll explain. So the other voices that you heard were the actors that are playing the roles. Now the roles that they put up on screen, I'll see if I can scroll forward, was Bridget, right? So it's Saint Bridget, right? So the goddess Bridget, and then she became, was the one with the Christianization of Ireland, the ancient pagan legends and deities and gods, etc., were Christianized. So she was a goddess Bridget, and here in Ireland, as you know, we Bridget Cross and all that sort of stuff. So this is the goddess Bridget, and there's another Twitter account I follow called Motherfucker. Now they kind of closed down, so I don't know what they're doing. They're still doing opened, putting stuff up, but I thought they'd closed, but apparently not. So they put up a little explanation here who Goddess Bridget is, because they've been getting into it with these Celtic film half-wits. Because now I kind of want to come at this from two angles. First of all, there's the right-wing Nazi shit, right? The culture warrior fucking nonsense. About race purity and all this crap, right? That's what they're coming from. Then there's the complete fucking mangling of who these people are and who these who is the Goddess Bridget, for example. So Goddess Bridget is one. So motherfucker say this, re Irish mythology and Celtic films. The Goddess Bridget is one of the best known figures in Irish mythology. However, there's very little known about her, and she doesn't play a big role in the surviving stories. Her popularity is probably owing to her later Christian saint of the same name. We think that that's sort of, it's the same character, right? Now it's possible to make right. Sorry, I'm just scanning this. Right, so I'm not gonna go into that, because this is too. I'll be here for the fucking forever if I hit every point I'd want to make. So that's who Bridget was. Now they've made her out. Now she's a goddess. This isn't Saint Bridget. This is Goddess Bridget. This is Bridget from the mythology, because all the characters that they've brought up, and on the Celtic Films website, it's Fionn McConnell, so Finn McCool, it's Maha, you saw there Manu and Balanius, I don't know who that is, it must be maybe a Brittany Celt, but they're using Celtic mythology and they're completely fucking mangling it, but they're using it to promote a right-wing, white American, Irish American right-wing agenda. And the thing, I have a particular fondness for American culture in my heart, and I do believe that the mid-century art, music, jazz, blues, literature, and art is the best for me. It's best, you know. You have to look at the great periods of artistic flourishes, the Renaissance and the Impressionist movement, and all. You have to look at those great moments in history to get anything to compare to that mid-century bit of American creativity. And I genuinely believe that. And so I have a great fondness, and you know I'm a blues fan and all, especially. So I have a great fondness for that. So whenever I see Irish America fall for this shit, it hurts me. Whenever I see in right-wing, in American government circles, be the so-called right or so-called left, there is no left, it's all right. And you see all these Irish surnames, and it genuinely hurts me a wee bit. I'm like, oh, for fuck's sake. You see some guy called Frank Maguire, and he's reading of some horrible fucking stuff about American foreign policy or killing people and doing horrible things. It breaks my fucking heart. And this is just a contribution to that canon. This idea. So these guys. So I'm going to read you a little bit, right? So there's two articles here, but one of them I'm going to read. It's a quick one, and it's from the National, which is a Scottish newspaper, right? And I'll just real quick. Delusional US plan for Celtics. Everyone puts Celtics in inverted commas because there's no. I was like, what? That's not a word. Celts. TV show knocked back by disbelieving Scots. So there was a crowdfunder for this. So the crowdfunding page on Kickstarter promised Star-Spangled Druids hats for backers, among other things. The Druids hats that you saw in the merchandising were $750. They were branded Druids hats. What the fuck is a Druids hat? So it's like a pointy wizard's hat that Gandalf would wear, but it's got a wee Celtic fucking scroll on it or something. Nonsense. Clips revealed tartan-clad actors with blue streaked faces delivering lines in a variety of misplaced accents. As many as heroic Celtic druid gods, myths and history brought to life, the maker said. This is a wide and expansive historical movie series covering a range of time from the Bronze Age through the Iron Age to the Roman Empire. Well, Brigid sitting there, Brigid, the goddess Brigid, is sitting there complaining about the loss of free speech because the Romans never made it to Ireland. And by the way, on the screen you can see the megalith behind her. That's fucking Stonehenge. That's in England, by the way. So the pitch failed to bring in the $100,000 sought, attracting a lesser sum of $16,000. It did succeed in raising eyebrows in Scotland and beyond. The critics who questioned the use of the term Celtics instead of Celts were indoctrinated by the British Empire, and scores of Scots Gaels were blocked by the makers on Twitter for questioning the project, with some accused of globalist neo-Marxism for supporting Scottish membership of the EU. The people, these half-wits. That's what they're coming from, right? Supporting the political union, the makers said, meant individuals are for the destruction of Ireland and Scotland, while others were described as getting very indignant when the truth was told to them due to their lack of education. Baffled Gaelic speakers discovered that they'd been blocked without even interacting with the outfit, including TV presenter Joy Dunlop and the poet Morg Anna Nick joking. Oh, Nick Neil. There are millions of Scottish all over the world, said Celtic films. Of the few that remain loyal to one globalist empire or another, only 1,000 were upset. So that's where you're coming from. Now, here's the real meat and bones of it. I'm going to link to this. You can read this yourself. I'll hit you with a bit of it. So this so-called movie project, and as I said, one of the reasons that this is just genuinely hilarious, but the potential for this to be dangerous is real. Okay? People across the world, all of us, we're all continually searching for meaning. We're living in a world that's in ever-changing flux. Everything's moving and changing all the time. And the things that all of us were maybe sure of a decade ago, 2 decades ago, not so much anymore. Things are changing that quickly. And that, I think, is new. And it's also it's new to us. It's a signal of the end of empire. It's a signal of change. Things are changing. We're not in the middle of an empire. We're at the end of it. So people are searching for meaning all over. And quite often we've seen everything from mad conspiracy theories, which have been doing the rounds this past year and a bit due to we know what, and to harmful stuff like this. And this gives these people, as they would say it, license, because nobody owns this, so anybody can do this. So this Celtic purity that this Irish-American filmmaker, who would be better off concentrating on making films about his own country, I hope, nobody owns these, so he can do what he wants with them. And is the timelines and the structures and things they're all over the fucking place. The villain of the piece is the Roman Empire, and the good guys are the Celtic saints and gods and all the rest of it. Right, to say that the Roman Empire didn't interact with the Celts, of course they fucking did. Heavily. But they didn't make it to Ireland. But that's not the point. To use that beautiful culture to promote this horrible right-wing neo-Nazi ideology is unacceptable to me. It's just unacceptable. Fuck off. And it's when I first saw this, I was in fucking stitches, laughing at it. But then I realised the potential for real danger. And don't get me wrong. This isn't going to be huge by any means, but it's just another brick in the wall. That's what it is. It's just one more thing to contribute. And I don't want to say, as someone who tries to promote our culture in the best way possible, this hurts me. This really fucking hurts me. And I'll link to something. So I'll read from this first, and then I'll show you something else, and then we'll move on. So this is an article by a guy called Duncan Snedden. And it's from a publication called Bella Caledonia. And Duncan Snedden is a research assistant in the Department of Celtic and Scottish Studies at the University of Edinburgh. And he holds a PhD in early medieval Scottish history. So, here we go. It's quite long. I'm not going to read it all. I'll just get you the bullet points. If you've been spending any time in Gaelic or Gaelic adjacent parts of Twitter over the past few days, you've probably been made unpleasantly aware of a filmmaker in the United States who's been trying to raise money to make a Celtic-themed television series. I'd like to see a Celtic-themed television. That'd be fucking cool. Not this one. If you haven't been spending time in the Gaelic or Gaelic-adjacent parts of Twitter, this has likely passed you by, but you will have noticed that I have not named the filmmaker or the title of his proposed show, nor am I going to. Well, he actually did in the title of the fucking article. I was in fact swithering about writing this. The TV show and the promotional materials for the fundraiser, which thankfully fell woefully short of its target, are nothing other than far-right propaganda. And it's in the nature of propaganda that people are talking about. It is crucial. Propagandists of all stripes have long fed on outrage, and this is probably truer in the age of social media than it was before. Couldn't disagree with that. Many of us have found ourselves torn between the satisfaction of retweeting something with a sarcastic dunk attached and not wanting to give some moronic or bigoted statement more oxygen. Nobody wants to become the conduit for someone else's hatred, and yet the attempt to make the show points to issues about cultural engagement with the past that do not need to be discussed and illustrates discourses on the far right that need to be contested. This issue is bigger than the frankly pathetic antics of a fantasist who spent most of his weekend blocking every Gaelic speaker on Twitter. That happened, by the way. He did that. Whether they had taken time to ask him or not, to take him to task or not, so I won't name him or his wretched project. Well, I've already fucking named him, so Ishmisha Miho. What do you call it? Is it Ms Miho? If you've seen the promotional clips, you've probably gaped open-mouthed at how bad they are. The acting is laughably atrocious, and the script might, if given some serious attention, improve to the level of being merely moronic. Its sense of style and artistic subtlety makes Samurai Cop look like Andrei Rublev. To get the general impression, imagine that Tommy Wiseau. Well, you've already seen it, so I won't. So, the history and display is very much of the pseudo variety, showing, despite protestations of extensive research, no sign of any knowledge of the language, the history, culture, or pre-Christian Christian religion of the cultures we conveniently, if problematically, designate Celtic that couldn't have been gleaned from 80s fantasy comics. And a glance at the titles on display in the books section of New Age crystals and incense shops, the errors are sufficiently laughable and basic that I trust anyone 2 weeks into a first-year undergraduate Celtic civilization course would be rolling their eyes. But as fun as this is, it's not really the point. And this is the fucking meat and potatoes of this. The fact is that ignorant fantasists trying to make a penny from a myriad of indistinguishable repackagings of whatever they think Celtic is, after all, nothing new. And while speakers of Celtic languages and scholars and students in Celtic studies roll our eyes at Enya, Druids, ancient wisdom, moon, goddess, true secrets, real King Arthur slurry that gets spread around on the internet and popular culture, we don't tend to meet it head on. Now, I want to address that point. I'm going to address that point in a minute. At the end, what he says there. I don't like the gatekeeperiness of it, but I agree with everything he said. And I'm sure I'll talk about that in a minute. I'm going to finish on that. So, for one thing, if we did spend time debunking this nonsense, we'd never have time for anything else. And for another, most of it is, while nonsense, fairly harmless nonsense. Don't get me wrong. The wider issue of commercialisation and commodification of real, living, minoritized cultures is a serious one. It speaks to bigger questions about our economy, how our minority cultures are elbowed out of the mainstream cultural discussion, and how others feel free to appropriate what they want, decontextualise and package to suit tastes of the Anglophone majority. In this case, an Anglophone majority. All true. Can't disagree with that. All of this is true, and it all plays a part in the slow grinding process of undermining the actual existing Celtic language cultures. Nobody thinks that any particular piece of Celtic New Age mysterious relaxing music to chill to, or book purporting to reveal the lost ancient wisdom of the Druids, or tattoo in badly spelt Irish, is actually the big problem. No. None of those things are in and of themselves a big enough deal to worry for anyone's time and energy, so we roll our eyes and get on with it. Right, okay. This is different. And rather than trying to flog another book about the mystical mysteries of the mysterious Ogham, this filmmaker is using this fantasy Celticism to produce what is openly and explicitly far-right propaganda. The show's promotional materials and social media resound with the tedious clamour of the far-right's favourite tunes. The Roman Empire was globalist and multicultural. The Celts were a freedom-loving people defending their sacred freedom of speech from censorious Romans. Everyone who scoffs at this arrant nonsense is a neo-Marxist globalist. The show's website declares the show to be commentary on the present-day globalist empire occupying our lands, and warns against the totalitarian censorship that threatens our freedoms, pointing out that this is a paranoid fantasy, has as little basis in the present as it does in the dim and distant Celtic past, is naturally totalitarianism. By neo-Marxists, naturally, these are familiar refrains to anyone who has spent any time observing the far right. Sadly, it is the appropriation of medieval imagery and invocations of Iron Age identity to make their point. Medievalists have been growing increasingly concerned in recent years by the far right's annexation of popular representations of our field, from handily anti-Islamic crusader imagery, replete with supposed crusader battle cry of Deus Vult, to the display of Norse or pseudo-Norse runes and imagery at Charlottesville. Far-right actors have shown a fondness for branding themselves in such a way, trying to give support to their laughable claims that their ideology represents some continuity with the European deep past. No doubt their rather Victorian stereotyped view of the past as being dominated by manly men with big swords and big muscles, appeals to how they would like to imagine themselves in the present. Defenders of Europe, stroke the West, against invading hordes. Our present filmmaker froths about the globalist multicultural Romans bringing African soldiers, I read about this on the website, over to oppress the Britons, often with the chorus about how we must defend white women from them, so that they can perform their proper function of being blonde and pretty and submissive. It's all very ludicrous, and if you've been fortunate enough not to have come across this, it must seem pretty far-fetched. Though anyone who has spent time observing the far right will recognise every word of it. In fact, when it comes to current ideologies cosplaying as historical ones, we have the amusing irony that in this particular instance our propagandist is behaving in a profoundly Roman manner. After all, using the trope of the noble freedom-loving Celts, or any barbarians really, to deliver an unsubtle rebuke to the decadence and servility of their imperial culture is one that we find quite often in Roman writing. And I will say British Empire writing as well, by the way. The best known example to Scottish readers doubtless being the stirring speech penned by Tacitus to Ventriloquis Calgacus. The Romans make a dessert and they call it peace, and all that jazz. Of course, Tacitus has no intention of running away from the comforts of the Roman Empire and living as a Caledonian, any more than our present filmmaker has any intention of a meaningful engagement with the actually existing Celtic language culture outside of the safety of his own fantasy. Not if his mass and often pre-emptive blocking of Gaelic and Irish speakers and the Celtic scholars is any guide. No. Celtic language speakers are to be silent. Their histories and their cultures are to provide a vaguely exotic backdrop for his hateful ramblings to be projected onto. It's standard issue far-right frothing, but with pretty nut work thrown in. So far, listen, I'm nearly done here. I've read the whole article. So far, the far-right appropriation of the past has centred on the Crusades and the Vikings, with nary a mention of hymns kringa. Don't know what that is. I've never seen that word in my life. And other Norse texts identifying Odin and the gang as immigrants from Asia Minor, naturally. That would rather spoil things, and this is nothing new. After all, German ultranationalists, since long before Hitler, have enjoyed getting esoteric with runes and invocations of their manly, racially pure, facially heterosexual pagan warrior forebears. There's been much less of this nonsense abusing Celtic imagery and culture, but none as our filmmaker demonstrates. The abuse of these cultures props up the propaganda of a hateful, poisonous ideology, and has to be met with more than a roll of our eyes, or it will gain a foothold. It has to be called out for the hateful, paranoid, ahistorical nonsense that it is. Those of us privileged to teach, research, to publish, to sing, to exhibit, or in any way share any aspect of Celtic culture have to be on our guard. We have to be aware that bad actors in both senses, in a bad faith, want to use these things to propagate their hateful worldview. We have to make it clear that their vile ideology has no place in what we do. And So there we go. So that's what this film is, and that's what these people are, and this is why I wanted to talk to you about this. And as the author puts, it's for those of us that enjoy this stuff, call these pricks out. They'll ban you. If you're on Twitter, they'll block you straight away. Fucking call them out anyway. Put them right. And anywhere you see this stuff, you need to call it out. This is fucking bullshit. We have a beautiful culture and a beautiful heritage and a beautiful past, large parts of which remain unknown to me, and nobody knows it all, of course, but I'm enjoying it as much as I can. And as my court solicitors on as the court solicitors on the YouTube chat says, neo-Marxist globalists sound good crack. Yes, they fucking do, don't they? I think that's what the fucking party's at. Neo-Marxist globalists. That's brilliant. Fantastic. So we need to call that out. It's awful, awful stuff. And just in case, if you're on the fence about whether this is as dangerous as hopefully it isn't, but if it's as dangerous as all that, can I just get you to pay a moment's attention to the acting and just how bad it is? So for that reason alone, we should be against this sort of stuff. Even if you are a Nazi, you should be against this. This is shit. It should offend you too. Check this shit out.
Their performances here.
Censorship of the totalitarian Roman Empire is already coming upon us.
Muzzled. Voiceless.
You'll be blown away.
These gifts
I was.
are not ours. We do not make our gifts.
Yeah, for
Our
those of
gifts-
you listening to this podcast, the actor has literally looked down to check the script.
Travels through us.
Censor and control our speech from one authoritarian point. No more
Authoritarian.
will we be a free people.
Authoritarian. Maka.
They're called Romano Britons!
My county's named after her. Why the fuck does it? This is awful.
You'll be blown away.
I know that many
There's-
times in the past, I
Huh?
have fought the other Celtic tribes.
Blown
Put on
away.
his wee Native American Indian accent there. Did you hear that? Because he saw the word tribe in the script. And it's Finn McCool, Fionn McConnell. And he's got a lovely wee fucking number 2 fade there. No shit. You should check this out. If you're listening to this, you need to check this out.
I have fought the other Celtic tribes.
I have fought the other
Blown
Celtic tribes. What the fuck?
Way. So no matter what funding we get, we can make this first episode happen. This will be a legendary episode that we will be
I
filming.
mean,
Any level of backing that you choose, the rewards are outstanding. We have
well, I'm going to play that. The rewards are outstanding, so you can crowdfund this if you want. I know I'm safe here. I know that nobody that watches this is going to go and buy this crap, right? And if you do, you should be ashamed of yourself. As I've said to you, this is not about cultural gatekeeping. This is about bad acting. We need to stop the bad acting, right? So here's the rewards.
Celtic druid
rewards here, like $1,
wizard's
$5.
hat.
Wizard's hat. A wizard's hat. $750. For those of you listening, I'll describe it. What is it? It's a felt fucking Gandalf hat with stars and a wee Celtic scroll on it.
A druid walking staff.
A druid walk. What
We
is a
have
druid walking staff?
A
$450, by the way, for a stick.
hood.
A druid
And many
had
other-
$2,000. Was that said 2,000 or 200? 2,000. Well, if it was 200, that was fair enough. $2,000 for a druid's hood. What the? By the way, what the fuck is a druid? None of these things. Nobody knows what the druids looked like. We don't know the clothes that they wore. As I said, it's not about that. It's about the acting. The acting needs to go. I am against bad acting. Down with bad actors. That's what I say. Fuck these chuds. So they may well be Nazis. They may be Nazis. They may be far right, right wing ultra nationalists. But I can live with all that if they could act better. That's all I'm saying. So I wanted to move on to, now, that last article was great. I'm going to link to that. I'll put the links in the show notes, right? The Bella Caledonia one, the one by Duncan Snedden. That was good. That explains in a good way. And you can have another read of that. Although I only intended to read a few bits of it, but I ended up, as I do, read the whole fucking thing. But I'm happy enough to have done that because it's kind of important. But there was a bit in it I said I wanted to come back to, and I'm going to do that now. I won't linger on this. And he says, now this guy's an academic, and he's obviously a lover of Celtic culture and all those things. He enjoys all those things, obviously, and he's fascinated by these things. I'm sure he knows his stuff. He knows much more than me, for sure. But he's coming at it from an academic position, and that's good. That's a good thing. He says here in the article, while speakers of Celtic languages, I'll just throw that up on the screen for you. There we go. As speakers of Celtic languages, I'm trying to highlight that. It won't bloody highlight anymore. I don't know what's going on. And scholars and students in Celtic studies roll our eyes at the Anya Druids' ancient wisdom, moon goddess, true secrets, real King Arthur slurry that gets spread around on the internet. In popular culture, we don't tend to meet it head on. And I'm not slagging the guy off. He's right. These guys, they're looking. It depends on what you're talking about, I suppose. But on one end of the fucking scale, you've got these fucking Celtic films, dingbats, right? Then on the other end of the scale, you've got the purists and the gatekeepers of which there aren't too many. I don't know any personally, because anybody I know that wants, if you wanted to learn how to play a bodhrán or the pipes or the flute, I know hundreds of people that would be delighted to help you do it. And you learn all sorts of things, and the Irish language is the same. As I said, I didn't like to take a piss out of that guy, is Mish. Is Ed Miho. And, but I did that because he's a Nazi, not because of his pronunciation. So I don't like that gatekeeping. So I'm going to show you something here that you'll think this is unlikely. How's Andy going to connect these? How's Andy going to connect Kung Fu Panda with what we've been talking about? Well, I'm about to fucking do it. You're not going to. Mind is about to be fucking blowed. Watch this shit, right? So, on the screen, Kung Fu Panda. In the article about the Nazi Irish Americans going on about the Celtics, the Celtics, right? The Boston Celtics. And the learned Duncan Snedden saying here, rolling out, some people, moon goddess, ancient wisdom, true secrets, King Arthur slurry that gets spread around the internet, right? We need to be careful about the gatekeeping as well. So we can't just deny access to we can't just slag people off, like maybe get it wrong. We need to correct them. We need to put them right. So we need to put them right for two reasons. We need to put them right. So from this right-wing drivel, we need to put them right for obvious reasons. But we also need, if we know something, we also need to put them right so that we don't put people off. Right? Because it's a good thing. Right? God knows the culture was nearly fucking gone altogether. The best efforts of the Empire tried to make it go away, and they couldn't. So, what do we have here? So what the fuck are you talking about Kung Fu Panda, Andy? Well, let me show you. Again, I found this on Reddit. Put it up there to show you. Today I learned that Kung Fu Panda, there's a little subreddit called Today I Learned, TIL. That's what that means. If you see capital TIL, that means Today I Learned. So I follow this subreddit. It's called Today I Learned. Today I learned that Kung Fu Panda was extremely well received in China, with critics praising it as a sincere and respectful depiction of Chinese culture. And this caused a national debate on how Westerners had been able to produce a better film about China than the Chinese. It's interesting. Is that not interesting? That's interesting. And this is the point about the gatekeeping. So there's a link to Wikipedia. And the Chinese, instead of just dismissing it because it was made by Westerners, studied it and thought, ooh. So they caused, as I said, a national debate. So there's a link to Wikipedia, and in the Wikipedia article, there's this. Kung Fu Panda was also well received in China. It made nearly 110 million yen, becoming the first animated film to earn more than 100 million in China. The Chinese director Liu Huan commented, "From a production standpoint, the movie is nearly perfect. Its American creators showed a very sincere attitude about Chinese culture. The film's critical and commercial success in China led to some local introspection about why no film like Kung Fu Panda had been produced in China." That's good to ask that. It's good to ask that question. With commentators attributing the problem variously to lower film budgets in China, too much government oversight, and a dearth of national imagination, and an overly, and this is the important, an overly reverent attitude to China's history and cultural icons. Now, that's really good. To be able to admit that is really good. So, in and of that we deal with our own cultural icons, we need to not be too precious, because at the end of the day, we don't really know an awful lot about them. Okay? A lot of the culture was spoken and not written. In the Celtic films, they talk about the Romans burning books. Bridget goes on, I didn't show you it, but she goes on about the Romans were burning books, about the censorious Romans burning books. This is 3,000 years ago. There were no books 3,000 years ago. There were no books to burn. So you can go from one depiction of a cultural icon and completely mince it like that. Or you can do something cool and groovy with it, like this. Like Jack Black here in his depiction of Kung Fu Panda, which is fantastic. And this is great. And this keeps these myths and these cultural icons alive in the memory, alive in the culture, our combined memory. And we don't be too gatekeepery about them. You look at the Ulster Cycle, Cuchulainn and all that. Why those aren't major movies, comics and all that, I just don't know. But this is how they need to be approached, like this. And it may take somebody from the outside to do it. But if there's someone from the outside is going to do
Hi,
this
is Mish Mihal.
If they're going to do this with it, well then we need to argue, we need to fight them, we need to stop them. But bear in mind, it's going to be difficult, because as I said, nobody owns this stuff. It's just out there, right? But if they're going to do this with it, the Kung Fu Panda, do you get my point? Did it make sense? Does that wrap up? Did I put a bow on that? I feel like I did. I'm happy enough to say that I feel like I put a bow on that. So, there we go. That's my point. Now, I'm going to end with something nice, because I don't want to end with talking about Nazis. And when it comes to the culture-y stuff, because this is called politics, culture, and some other shit, as you know, I like to end with, pardon me, something cool. And I found something cool. So, before it's a wee very, very short little thing. 2 seconds. This is going to take. I think you're going to love this. This is going to be fun. Let me see if I can just throw you up. There we go. Look at their wee face. Wee girl on the screen. Beautiful red head, all covered in white skin, all covered in freckles. Gorgeous wee thing, about 5 or 6 years of age. So, what are the nation's favourite words as Gaelic? So, I'm going to end this with something positive. And this is not about ancient culture, and this is modern today. The language is alive today on the island. So these horrible people can't touch this. They can't ruin this for us. This is ours and we own it. And they can fuck off. So, broadcaster Sinead Nahulahan spoke on the Red RC Radio 1 show about the nation's favourite words as Gaelic and why they resonate with us. Ray and Sinead spoke about the language as a lyrical, guttural and poetic one, and if you understand it, it is. And if you'll actually get it from a sense. I'm going to read you a couple of things here, and you'll get it, what they mean. When you hear me, if you don't understand about the Irish language being poetic, and you go, what the fuck do you mean? Give me a second here. Some of the favourites Sinead, Ray and the listeners chose from a variety of Irish words, for freckles to the ultimate put-down of plomus. So, the wee girl there you can see on the screen, those of you listening, I just described what's on screen. So, Poigini, I fucking know I've minced that, Grania. Poigini, Grania. And that's the Irish word for freckles. And then what that means is, it doesn't mean freckles, it doesn't just go freckles, like it means freckles in English. In Irish, it means it's kisses from the sun. So the Irish language is a poetic language. So this is the thing, right? This is one of the reasons why it's a bit difficult to learn. That and the fucking grammar. So it means kisses from the sun, right? Now here's another. And this is from the Ulster dialect that I learned. So it's Croy Ischak, right? This is gorgeous. And it's the Ulster Irish way of saying hug. Right? Literally translated as bringing your heart inwards towards another. Croy Ischak is hug, and it means bringing your heart inwards towards another. Croy is the word for heart. I have a t-shirt, Gaelic Mo Croy. Irish in my heart. Yeah? So Croy is heart. There you go. If you see Croy, you know it's something to do with that. You build up your vocabulary that way, don't you? Croy is chucked. So, plomus, a word so fondly used in Irish, it is transcended the language boundaries and often heard in Hiberno English as a description of behaviour best described as flattery. Yeah. No, I'm going to end that because Croy Ischak was better. Should have ended on that. A hug. So Croy Ischak to everybody listening. And remember, we're all in this together. All us Ulster Irish nationalists, Ulster Unionist brothers and sisters, we need to make this shit work. And these far right fucking lunatics, where you get an opportunity to put someone right, please do. That's why I did this article, or did this piece on that article and on those guys. This is my doing that, and all my listeners will hear this and they'll be aware of this, and we shall hopefully head them off at the past, and we won't see our lovely culture being appropriated at a far right rally in America, where some poor woman gets killed or some gets run over or some thing happens, and can you imagine? So thanks everybody for joining in and for listening, and I'll catch you at the next one. Like, share, subscribe. I want to leave the wee girl on the screen because she's so pretty. There we go. Like, share, subscribe. And take care. Bye.